to citizens of Andhra Pradesh, mainly children and youth, and exploring the bird life of least explored landscapes, especially the forest of Eastern Ghats in Andhra Pradesh. Today he will speak us Today he'll speak to us on a glimpse of bird migration, challenges focused by migratory birds, and how we can contribute to understand the bird migration better. Over to you, sir, to please begin your talk.
Yeah, thank you, Divya. Can you hear me better? Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right,
Yes.
thank you. And thanks for the intro. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rajshekhar Bandi. I'm working as a citizen science coordinator at ISA Tirupati. And I have to thank the team at Indira Gandhi Zoological Park, Vizag, for this opportunity. And before going into the details, I request, like everyone, to be patient. I mean, I try to restrict my presentation for the next 30 minutes, but it might go some 5 minutes over. But it's just a caution that it might go up to 35 minutes. And thanks for bearing with me. So I'm just starting my presentation, Divya. Could you please check my presentation? Can you see full screen?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Right, thank you. So today we're going to look into the bird migration, a quick look into the details of the bird migration. And before I go into the presentation, I just want to give a quick intro about ISA Tirupati. ISA is Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, which was established under the Act of Parliament. And we do multidisciplinary research. And currently I'm working out of the biology department.
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. Right, thank you. And currently I am working out of the biology department, and I'm attached with the bird lab at ISA Tirupati. And our core research is on the bird acoustics, biogeography, and genetics of the bird in the peninsular India. So this is briefly about the bird lab at ISA Tirupati. And if you have any more queries or if you need any more info, you can visit the bird lab at skyisland.com.
Mr. Raja, can you stop for a while? There is no sound coming. Ramna, can you please check what is the issue?
Our side is clear, ma'am. Actually, from Raja sir mic is a problem, I think so. So our voice is okay. Our voice is audible.
Neither the slides are visible in the video.
Mic is switched off. Raja's mic is switched off.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's now okay.
Right. Sorry about this. I'm just sharing again.
Mr. Raja, can you stop for a while? There is no sound coming. Ramna, can you please check what is the issue?
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Can you see me?
Actually, Raja sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. The voice is audible, sir.
Oh, I'm audible now, and you can see my screen as well, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm just going back to the previous slide. So, what is bird migration? So, the bird migration can be simply termed as the seasonal movement of birds from one place to another every year. And then, what do we know about the bird migration? Where do they migrate? Why do they migrate? And how do they migrate? Some of the science and research happening across the world has already answered some of these questions. But we will look into some of these basics now. So where do birds migrate?
So birds have wings and they fly across continents, countries, regions, across oceans and seas. So how do we know where the birds are migrating? So if you look into the historical data or what history tells us, like there are different theories that were proposed earlier, well before science came into picture. So people believed that how do we know to sun, and some more people believed that they hibernate in water. The image you are seeing here is actually a picture of people pulling out swallows out of a lake bed. And also there are some other illustrations in the historical books, like the book which is mentioned here, Olaus Magnus book from Sweden. It gives a picture that the storks, which are large birds, used to migrate to fight with pygmies. So there are different kinds of theories before science came into picture. So everything changed in 1822 when this happened. So this is an arrow stork, and I mean this is a taxidermy specimen from a university in Germany. So this changed the whole theory of migration. The assumptions which were about migration earlier were completely binned after the finding of this arrow stork. So in 1822, a stork with this about 30-inch, if I'm right, yeah, about 30-inch long spear was found in Germany by some hunters. So when they looked into the spear, they realized that the spear was made out of wood from Africa. So how does a bird with a spear penetrated through the body, flew all the way, or carried a spear all the way from Africa? So the question came up, and then they realized that so someone tried to spear the bird in Africa, but the bird never gave up. With the spear in its body, it flew all the way from Africa to Germany. And after 1822, about more than 20 other individual birds were found with the spears in the body. So these birds have very high endurance and strength. With a spear in their body, they flew all the way from Africa to Germany. So this actually created a benchmark for the migration. And then people started realizing that these birds are flying all the way from Africa. So this is the start of the bird migration. I mean, bird migration studies, and this actually set up a benchmark in the history of bird migration. And after this, there are new age bird migration studies. So there are technologies that evolved in early 1900s, and currently we're using a lot of transmitters and all. So the new age bird study is probably starting with the ringing of birds. You can see that people catch birds and put a ring on the legs with a unique identification number, and when the ringed bird goes to somewhere else, someone else will catch the bird, and then they will report it to the ringing organization. So you know where the bird was ringed and where it reached. So it will give us a picture of the migration from point to point in the birds. And then latest technology, we have the GPS tracking devices. Birds are fixed with very small GPS tracking devices, which actually gives the location of the bird, continuously tracking their migration, the altitude, and the temperature data. A lot of other information in the bird migration path are being tracked and monitored. And then we have the citizen science data. We have platforms like eBird and iNaturalist. There are so many other platforms where people all over the world who watch birds would record the bird sightings and then upload the data to portals like eBird and share with the global community. So we'll look into how this data is being used later on in some other slides. But I just want to give a rough idea about how the bird migration has evolved and the studies have evolved. Right from a stork with a spear in its body to the citizen science data, in a span of 200 years, the migration studies has evolved very rapidly. And And currently we have a lot of data. We have birds migrating from continents and flying over oceans, and then we are having info on the birds which are doing land migration, which are doing sea migration. There are a lot of data across the world currently available. And now, why do birds migrate? We know where the birds are migrating, and why do birds migrate? If you look into the details, like humans, birds are also, they want to thrive. So, especially birds in the northern hemisphere, they fly south to the tropical and subtropical regions to escape the extreme weather conditions, and then in search of the resources, wherever the resources are available, then birds will follow, or go to the migratory. Go to that a location or the region in search of resources. And some birds like pied cuckoo, which actually visits India from Africa, visits India for breeding or nesting. So, so probably these are the three main reasons behind the bird migration. And globally, it is estimated that 50% of the bird species migrate across the world. And then how do birds migrate? So we had to look at where do birds migrate and why do they migrate and how do birds migrate? Because some of the birds migrate very short distances and they do local migration, like the birds that move between different parts of the country. And some birds do long distance migration that migrate from continent to continent and countries to countries. But how can they endure these long distance flights? And how do they migrate? So let's look into them. So planning for the migration is the key part. Birds are of various sizes. So small birds which migrate long distances might get hunted on their way by other raptors or predators. So probably some of the smaller birds, they normally fly during nighttime. And large birds like vultures, eagles, and all, they're all raptors and huge birds, and they use the thermals during the daytime to fly. And most of these raptors fly or migrate during the daytime. And on the top of it, birds go through a lot of hormonal changes just before they migrate from one place to another. And due to these hormonal changes, they tend to eat more than what they usually do. So they plan their diet and they eat a lot of other options like the insectivorous birds start eating fruits and other material just to accumulate a lot of fat so that they can use the fat during their flight and they can consume the energy smartly. So a bird normally fattens up before the migration starts. It might weigh about some 30 grams, but when it reaches its wintering ground or the migratory grounds, it might come down to again 10 grams. So it loses a lot of weight. So as per the distances, the birds do plan their diet and they fatten up, they fly across continents and countries. And also birds wait for the right weather. So the pied cuckoo, which I mentioned earlier, that visits India from Africa, it takes advantage of the southwest monsoon winds. So the bird will catch up with the monsoon winds and then it will fly from Africa to India. So planning the migration is a key part for any bird, like irrespective of the size. So they take advantage of the weather conditions and then they fatten up. So they calculate all these before migrating, and it's been happening for ages and ages. And then how do they navigate? So how can birds navigate from one country to another country, or their breeding grounds to wintering grounds? How do they do it? So again, the bird biology will come into picture. So for example, until 1900s, like early 1900s, scientists have no idea about the olfactory capacity of the birds. But in the recent years, there's a lot of studies that establish that birds can smell from decent distances. So they can navigate by their olfactory capabilities. And also there are a lot of complex chemical reactions that happen between the eye and brain of the bird that will impact their navigation capabilities. So they fly by the star and the sun and the direction as well. So the nocturnal birds might follow the stars, and the diurnal birds might follow the sun. So there are a lot of theories and there are a lot of studies happening. But it is definitely birds can navigate through the complex systems. And also the ear of the bird is believed to help navigate the Earth's magnetic field. So in coordination with all these senses, birds can revisit their wintering grounds again and again in the same route, and probably they will visit the same place again and again. So like the road maps and the highways we have on the ground, birds have some kind of flyways, which can be termed as the highways for the birds. There are different flyways across the country, across the globe, to which the birds fly through and they do the migration. If you look at India falls into three major migratory flyways of the birds: the Central Asian Flyway, East Asian Flyway, and the East Asian Australasian Flyway. So the birds flying through all these flyways, some of them, or at least many of them, go past India, or they use India as the stopover sites. So stopover sites are nothing but when some of the birds doing long distance migration, they might get exhausted. So they want to refuel, or they want to take a break, and they might try to fatten up their more. So they start feeding in some of these sites in their migratory routes. The site could be a water body, a forest patch, or an urban landscape patch. Anything could be a stopover site. So the birds will stop over, feed again, and put on more fat, and then they will fly again towards the destination. So India falls into all these three flyways, and you would come across the birds which travel through all these flyways in India. So let's look at some extraordinary migratory journeys across the globe. And so the longest migration in the animal kingdom was recorded by an Arctic tern. So the scientists satellite tagged some Arctic terns. The Arctic terns are not found in India, but you can see that they fly all the way from North Pole to South Pole. And the record currently is a bird was tracked 80,000 kilometers round trip. I mean, it did a 80,000 kilometers round trip from North Pole to South Pole in 1 year. So imagine how much an Arctic tern will fly in its lifetime. So you can see the images here. This is the southbound migration of the bird and of the multiple Arctic terns that were satellite tagged. And on the return migration northbound from South Pole to North Pole again, the birds follow different migratory routes. But these are the largest, these are the longest migratory birds in the animal kingdom. And then we have the longest non-stop flight in migration. It was recorded very recently. A bar-tailed godwit. Bar-tailed godwits visit the Visakhapatnam coast as well, and they are found across Andhra coast in the coastal water bodies. So one of the satellite tagged bar-tailed godwit flew non-stop from Alaska all the way to New Zealand, about 12,000 kilometers non-stop, and 239 hours of non-stop flight. So imagine the endurance and how strong flyers these birds are. So these birds might weigh up to some 300 grams to 500 grams probably, or maybe less than that, and they fly some 12,000 kilometers non-stop. And then when coming to India, then we have these amazing bar-headed goose, and these are also recorded in Andhra coast and even some water bodies outside Visakhapatnam. So the bar-headed goose, they migrate from Mongolia and China to India, and the ones that visit from Mongolia, they fly over the Himalayas over an altitude of 8,000 meters. So until last year, if I'm right, these were this is the highest altitudinal migration recorded. But very recently, greater snipes were observed to be flying above 8,000 meters, so beating this bar-headed goose. So, like these migratory studies are very less studied in birds, and probably we will find more of these surprises in the near future. So all the birds we saw till now are the birds. All the migratory birds we saw till now are the flight birds, the birds which can fly. Then we can look at the question: can the flightless birds migrate? So we have a lot of flightless birds like ostrich, penguins and kiwis, so many other birds, right? So there's a penguin called Adil penguin, which actually can't fly, as we know. Penguins are flightless, but a recent study proved that they migrate, or it's not like migration, but they go around Antarctica. They move around the Antarctica ice shelf, and in 1 year, they can move around 12,000 kilometers. So not only the the flightless birds do migrate around in search of resources, or in search of landing zones, or rest areas, or food. The birds do chase resources just like human beings, and they migrate long distances than human beings. And then the importance of migratory birds. I will just quickly go through it in one slide, because this doesn't need any introduction. We all know that not only migratory birds, all birds does this. They are excellent pollinators, they do seed dispersal, they do ecosystem enrichment by the bird droppings, and most of the insectivorous birds do excellent pest control. And scavengers like vultures and some of the eagles and other birds clean their rotting carcasses, and they keep our ecosystems clean. And also, the winter birds, the migratory birds along with the resident birds are excellent resources of revenue generation if you can catch the ecotourism concept. So, for example, the Amur falcons were slaughtered till 2012 in the Northeast India, in Assam, Meghalaya, Assam, Manipur, and Nagaland. But after realizing the ecotourism potential, the forest department, NGOs, and the local people came together, and then they started conserving the Amur falcon stopover sites. And now many people across the country, and in fact around the world, visit the Amur falcon mass migration sites in these places, creating a lot of revenue for the local people. So from notorious hunters to excellent conservationists, now the local people in Nagaland and Manipur are generating a lot of revenue through this ecotourism concept by conserving the Amur falcons in the stopover sites. So this is just an example to just give you the potential of the ecotourism of the migratory birds. And then challenges in bird migration. What kind of challenges does the birds face during the migration? So illegal hunting is a major challenge for the birds. So birds fly long distances, thousands of kilometers, and some of the birds will fly in huge numbers. Like I said earlier, the Amur falcons in the Northeast India, when they're passing through India, they stop over in lakhs and lakhs. Until 2012, people used to hunt them in hundreds to thousands, probably. Right? So this kind of illegal hunting, it doesn't happen only in India or Northeast, but it happens globally. So this is one of the major threats. And also habitat destruction. So birds do visit their wintering grounds. They visit the same place again and again. Say, for example, the image here, right down of the blight-street warbler, which I'm pointing, it was ringed by one of our team members in 2018 in Kodaikanal. You can see the ring on the leg of the bird. So this bird has been visiting the same site for the past 3 years, and some of our team members have been documenting this bird. So the blight-street warblers are known to migrate to India from Central Asia and Europe. So this bird might be coming all the way from Europe or Central Asia, and it is visiting the Kodaikanal town every year. So the birds have tendency to visit the same habitat again and again as a part of the migration, and also the same stopover sites they use. And if the stopover sites and the habitats or the wintering grounds goes through massive changes like urbanization, or they got destructed, then obviously they will have no place to go, or they will just abandon the sites and go somewhere else. So illegal hunting and habitat destruction are the main challenges for the migratory birds. On the top of it, urban lights deter the birds' ability to navigate. So when they're flying through long distances, especially the nocturnal birds, pelagic birds are the seabirds. And the pesticide usage, imagine a black street warbler of 10 gram size that flies all the way from Europe to, say, Vishakhapatnam, and it's foraging around shrubs and bushes near an agricultural patch. And then we are using a lot of pesticide or insecticide, which would impact the bird. If the bird consumes any insects with a lot of pesticide deposit, then it will die. So they're just flying all the way here and dying because of the irresponsible use of pesticides. So these are briefly the main challenges that are posed for the migratory birds. I'll just show one slide just to give an idea. So this illegal bird killing is on the top of the list, right? So it happens all over the globe, and in places like Europe, where the state of art of research is happening in terms of birds, and in their own backyard, 25 million birds are being killed every year in Europe and Mediterranean. And imagine the kind of impact that it would make in the long-term populations of the birds. So it is not just happening in these rural landscapes or to the eBird portal. So that data, all these citizen science portals are open source data. So the scientists and researchers across the globe can use the data to understand the species abundancy, how many number of individuals of certain species are available or found in an area, and how many species are actually migrating, or how many species are being resident, and their distribution and their seasonality, when they're migrating, which season they're migrating, and all this data can be evaluated with the citizen science data. And these data can be used by enforcement authorities or the scientists, like forest department and the scientists, to plan and execute species conservation plans and key habitats. Like if we can observe and locate some stopover sites, and the stopover sites can be conserved and have habitat management plans can be enforced as well. South India. Again, if you want to study the bird in winter, you have to go South India or Sri Lanka. And if this bird is of conservation importance, then the habitats in the South India need to be conserved. So this gives a lot of data. So this is why the citizen science is very important. And as I said earlier, everyone can be a citizen scientist. All you need to do is step out, watch birds, observe, record, and share your observations. And with this, I am just stopping my presentation, and I just giving some resources. If you want to know more about the bird migrations, these are the books you can refer to. I hope these will be helpful for you. And at ICER, we do a lot of research supported by Andhra Pradesh Forest Department and Dilip Mata Nature Conservation Trust, National Geographic Society, Cornell University, and a lot of other organizations which I can't include here. And then I thank everyone for being a part of it and participating today. And I thank everyone at Indira Gandhi Zoo Park, Divya and Dr. Nandini Salaria, Ramana, and everyone for this opportunity. And after the next session, probably I will wait to take some questions. And thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the most relevant information on birds migration. Now I would like to welcome our second speaker of today's session, Janardhan sir. Sir is currently working as a Deputy General Manager in Vizag Steel Plant. He attended annual water bird census at Kakinada thrice and conducted annual water bird census in Vishakhapatnam and Srikakulam. He is also associated with Vizag Bird Watchers Association. Today he will speak us on live pollution on bird migration. Over to you, sir. Please begin your talk.
Yeah, thank you, Divya. And a very good afternoon to all. So this year's theme, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Yeah. Coming to this year's theme, it's on light pollution on migratory birds. Now, Raja Bandi has given a huge and interesting insights into the bird migration. Now, let us see how this light pollution is affecting the migratory birds. Okay. So, light. Is light good or bad? Yes, it's very good. It helps us in a lot of ways, and without it, there is no life at all. But is it bad? Did you ever question it? Yes, it is bad. When you go to sleep, you don't want light, and nobody switches off light, switches on the light when they go to sleep, right? Yes. Similarly, light has many effects, many uses and all, and let us see one by one. Coming to the sources of light, we have basically two sources of light. One is the natural light, the other one is the artificial light. And what is the difference between the natural light and the artificial light? And what are the different sources? Coming to natural light, we all know sun, the biggest source during the day, and the moon and the stars in the night. They are the huge sources of light, natural light for us, and they are also very important for the life on the planet. Yes, they have, and in the bright sunny day, one can visualize, see to the extent possible because that particular light is uniform in the open fields. Whether there is obstruction, till obstruction, you can see whatever is possible. And when it comes to the night, the visibility comes down, the beautiful colors, what we are able to visualize in the bright daylight, we may not be able to visualize the same brightness, but in a more or less in a grayscale. But when it comes to the stars, the visibility reduces still further. So this is not only to us, but it's same to even the migratory birds too. And coming to the artificial lights, we have different sources like street lightings, lightings on buildings, like train lights, vehicle lights, etc., etc., etc. Right? We'll see what is usefulness and what is the effects on other wildlife. Coming to the advantages of artificial light, yes, is it advantages? Very much. Because of this artificial light, we are able to roam around in the parks, in the midnight, in the streets, because of the street lights. Otherwise, it's not safe for us to roam around. Coming to the artificial lights, to the production and employment generation, economic activities, yes. This artificial light is increased production in such a way that irrespective of the environment outside, like it's raining or it's not, it's in the morning and the night, we are able to produce 24/7. It's possible only because of this artificial lighting. And it has created a lot of employment and also the recreational opportunities. Anybody would like to venture into sea in the dark night? Definitely not. But with the lighting, everyone want to enjoy the beach, right? And this artificial lighting, as per study, it is increasing by almost 2% every year globally, because each and every government, each and every person, they want to have a light to lighting, artificial lighting to reach to the each and nook and corner of the country, each and every village, so that those people who are residing there, they can have a better life, better opportunities and all. This is how the artificial light is increasing every year. And maybe one day we will see the whole planet is lit up by the artificial lighting. Coming to the impact of artificial lighting. Yes, artificial lighting, it is perceived differently by humans and birds. They damage our cells, retinal cells, because the intensity of the artificial light is such that once you are close to the source, it creates those cells damage, and we are partially blinded when we get when we go close to the source of this artificial lighting, and it happens similar to the birds too. Here I just want to take a small example. In a state highway where there are no street lights, one person in his 20s is driving a motor vehicle, and at a corner, if some heavy vehicle from the opposite side comes, as the vehicle comes nearer to him, he is blinded by the light. So he may not be able to see what is ahead of him. and if some pit hole or some pothole or something happens to be in front of it, definitely this person, maybe who will be traveling at 50 or 60, will definitely land in an accident and get himself injured. In the same way, these birds, when they encounter these artificial lights, they also get themselves injured. We'll see how that is happening. It also, this artificial lighting, it also disrupts the cycles in vegetation, animals, and humans. That also we'll be seeing later on. It changes the bird orientation, feeding, and migratory behavior. In the next few slides, we'll see how it is changing. As I said earlier, the light which is perceived by humans is different, and the light which is perceived by all other animals is different. We are very lucky that we are able to see almost all the colors and we are able to enjoy this beauty of this nature. But when it comes to the animals and birds, they hardly can see whatever these birds you see these birds very beautiful, very pretty colored and very patterns and all, but hardly they can see all those colors. This whole part of this region they can never see. So what impact does it have? Let us see. I've taken this photograph a few years back at Migratory, and once you notice the size of the pupils, the size of the pupil is changing as the light intensity is falling. Here you see a lot of light intensity, the pupil size is less, here it is larger. So a bird pupils also adjust according to the intensity of the light. Now this is a particular bird is a stationary one. Yes, it can always change, no issues. But consider a bird which is flying, how it can change, how it can vary its pupils according to the light source. If it is a continuous source, well, no issues at all. But if it's a light from a lighthouse which just passes on, it may not be able to adjust its pupils, so it may land up in hitting a structure or something. Now, this particular bird and we humans have this eyes in a single plane. I mean, in the forward direction, and it is a single plane. So what happens is we can able to estimate, yes, what is happening and what is not happening. Now consider these birds. The eyes of these particular birds, they are on the side. So as long as it's a natural light, there is no issues at all. But when it comes to the artificial lighting, the left eye says there is a huge light, the right eye says it's pitch dark. So as Rajapati has already told you, these birds, they use various sensory techniques and they have to recalibrate where they are going. So now there are two signals conflicting each other. Left eye says full light, right eye says no light at all. Now the brain has to decide which way to go. So which way it has to take. That is how they get disoriented. Whether to go right, whether to go left. That is how they land up hitting buildings and all. Now coming to sleep. How long can we be awake? Maybe probably not sleeping at night and maybe one day or 2 day continuously if we don't sleep. What is the condition of our body? Suppose we don't get sleep for the whole week. Can we stand? Where can we move? Similarly, coming to the birds, yes, they sleep. And if these particular birds, they make a roosting site where they stay in the night. And if this artificial light, as I said earlier, nobody wants to sleep in the light, right? And these artificial light, when they focuses on those roosting sites, when they fall on the roosting sites, what happens is these particular birds, they lose their sleep. If you are sleepless, how will your body cope up with the daily course of the life? The same thing, they also get affected. That affects their what we call migration, that affects their reproduction, everything. And coming to the basic activities of the birds, yes, They don't have schools, colleges like us. They enjoy the life. No, their main cycles are fledging the young, feeding, roosting. That's their cycle. So in this particular cycle, how the artificial life affects. As far as the natural light is concerned, in the daytime, no issues at all. But once comes to night, some of these flowers and all, they take advantage of the extended light. They can increase their feeding. But when it comes to roosting, almost all birds want undisturbed, unilluminated areas. There, all these things have a problem. Why? When these roosting sites, there is an artificial light on these roosting sites, they become easy prey to the predators since they are very much visible. So many of us might have visited this local beach there after 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. You might have seen these barn owls, maybe after 8 o'clock, something like that. These barn owls swooping down from nowhere, catching the rodents and going up. So what is happening there is, till 25 years back, there is no lighting at all. But now the lighting has increased. So what is happening is, these particular barn owls, they cannot capture the particular prey effectively. Why? This prey is able to see the barn owl coming because of the artificial light. So this is how the prey-predator relationship is getting affected by usage of these artificial lights. As I earlier said, artificial light, they disorient birds flying because they basically see the moon, the stars, and they start flying. When they start the flying, they see, and suddenly, when they go above these urbanized areas, they get confused. So what happens is, they don't, the time, there is a very little time to realize that there is a structure or something, and there is every possibility that they go and collide with the infrastructure. And as already it has been told, almost millions and billions of birds die every year because of this collision with the infrastructure and high-rise buildings. That also I'll be explaining in the later. And I also told that roosting sites, these lights, they increase the risk of predation, as they are very much exposed. And once these increased predation starts, the population reduces, and these migratory birds, they abandon that particular roosting site almost, so that since they are being preyed, they don't want to come there again. This artificial lighting, yes, we have seen in many ways. We are increasing the flowering, we are increasing the plant growth by artificial light, providing artificial lighting. But in the nature, what happens is, this artificial flowering and all that has an effect on the insects, because they don't, there the cycle, everything gets changed, so that this insects timing, everything gets, the birds which are feeding on the insects, that cycle is also affected, and all the whole cycle gets disturbed because of this artificial lighting. And many birds, many shorebirds and many small birds, what they want to do is, they just want to come out and take their first flight in the night, so that where the predator's risk is very much restricted or limited. But now with the artificial lighting, through the day there is a natural light, and in the night the artificial light comes, and this small chick, it doesn't know what it is, so that affects these birds to develop further. It can attack, I already told, predators and invasive pests and all. And coming to again, light-induced landings. In the previous case, when I told the intensity of light, when the intensity of light is such that in the daytime you don't feel anything, because you can see the heavy vehicle, you can see the road, everything visible to you because of the uniform lighting intensity. But in the night, because of those lights and all, you are blinded for a few seconds, and that few seconds is enough for a landing bird to miscalculate the ground, the electrical area, wires or pylons or fences or buildings or whatever is there surrounding that particular light. So that will fatally injure the bird. If they don't get injured, they are prone to the urban threats. So coming to these windows, why do you think that birds always hit these windows? Birds, as per study, they can target the moving objects more. And these particular windows, which are stationary and reflect the whatever you call, you can see the green vegetation is beautifully reflected. And these birds, when they see this natural vegetation, they think it's extension of this particular vegetation, and they move so fast that it becomes very difficult from them, even though they realize at that last moment to take an evasive action. So they almost strike the window. Sometimes the strikes is so fatal. Sometimes strikes may not be fatal immediately, but the head-on collision will have an impact on the brain, clotting of the brain, and that will lead to the fatal problems in due course. And coming back again to the staying with this lighting, due to urbanization, we have seen huge high-rise buildings come up, and in the concept of green buildings, what people have started doing is uh, this transparent glasses. These transparent glasses are such that maybe you might have seen an advertisement, or maybe you might have experienced too. I did experience once or twice. I had a attack. I just couldn't see that there is a glass, and it did hit it. But since I am walking slowly, there is no impact on me. But coming to these birds, they are flying with a velocity, and this velocity, again, when you go back to physics, it is the energy, kinetic energy, what that is twice the velocity of the bird. So the impact is fatal. And again, these particular buildings, in the morning, natural the sunlight, some windows they reflect, some windows are so clear that they allow the all natural light inside. And inside these office spaces, now they wanted to develop this small plants, vegetation, etc. So the bird thinks that it is a through and through passage for them. So when they try to enter this particular building, the glass is an obstruction. They don't realize it. So they collide with it. That is the main cause of killing of maximum birds during daytime. And coming back to the same buildings, during night time, maybe the urban landscape is changing so fast that whatever which was existing last year, that may not be there this year. Suddenly some other building springs up with a full lighting or something, and when people overstay, because now because of this artificial lighting, as I already told, 25/7 24/7 operations, that is already lit. These lit buildings mislead these birds, thinking that it is some landing spot or something which they have previously seen, and they collide with it, fatally damaging themselves. As I've already told, these birds, even though they are not injured while grounding, they have landed in a place where it is not suitable for them. They are not supposed to land at that particular place, and they become very vulnerable to predation, vehicle collision, starvation, dehydration, and poaching, as everybody knows. And one more thing, these birds, they when they circle the buildings, they waste energy. As I already was told, they come with a very few grams of fat with them, maybe 10 grams or 20 grams. So that huge that energy is all wasted by flying around the building, because they don't know, they that get misleading things, and they're calling out this, and that can exhaust this bird, and they finally die. And one more thing, these shorebirds, they forage at one place, and again they go to some other place for roosting. Why? Because they want a exclusively low light for the night sleep. And now, due to the increased artificial light, what is happening is these roosting sites are getting eliminated. As the roosting site is getting eliminated, they are forced to go to distances for roosting. So the place for the feeding ground to the roosting site has increased tremendously, that these birds are unnecessarily wasting their energy just by traveling these two areas, and henceforth in the next season they may avoid this whole area as a whole. The traveling cost is increasing, so they eliminate this roasting space for total. Now coming to the sources of lighting, artificial lighting. Yes, everybody likes a beachfront view villa apartment. Because why? Because of the beautiful sunset, beautiful sunrise we want to enjoy. For those who cannot enjoy the coastal areas, they see to that they go to a beachside resort or a cottage. So that is increasing the beachside residential and as well as the hotel developments. Once the hotel development increases, it not only destroys the feeding ground, but also the night artificial light will never allow the birds for roosting also. And that is being the coastal areas is being exploited in such a way that no way they can survive. Coming to street lights, yes, you know, street lighting, vehicle lighting, sporting facilities, and floodlights. Nowadays, IPL, etc., all these sporting facilities are taking place in the night. Why? Because of the huge viewership. But what it is happening is the whole stadium is lit. That is attracting these birds, and again, they're resulting in their fatality. Coming to sea, there are a lot of vessels. So when the bird is migrating through a phase, they suddenly see there is a vessel which is having small light and all. They may think that this size of the vessels have increased to such an extent that they almost resemble a small island or something, moving island. So they may think that yes, these cruise ships and these vessels are a moving island or something. They come and they fall prey. And as we are all well aware, the oil and natural gas is being exploited. The shore areas and surrounding areas is being exploited by for oil and natural gas. Once this oil and exploration starts up, there will be glass flares will be there today. This for burning all the excess gases and all. So what is happening is, as I already told you, these particular birds they will not be able to see the color of that red color. They may not be able to see, thinking that something else is there. They just turn into up and they get them burned up. And security lighting, yes, each and every building or a hotel or everybody or any some naval displacement, they want a secure place, and secure place can only happen in the night by artificial lighting only, so that nobody enters that particular area or compound. So that is again creating a problem to them. And I say navigation lighthouses and all, they just give a light and just go. That gives a disoriented signals for the birds. Now, how to control this artificial lighting? Yes, we can start. We can during migration in some countries they say that during certain particular period migration period, natural darkness is required, so they switch off the lights. So specific areas, specific migratory routes and all have been identified. They try to switch off the light so that the interference of this artificial light with the bird migration can be avoided. We have to use adaptive controls such that automatically if nobody is there, light dims out, the intensity comes down, or it switches off if nobody is there, or after a certain time or like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, the light automatically goes off. So that what happens is these particular birds they can enjoy. And mainly earlier you might have seen the street lights without dooms, so the light was going in all directions. But nowadays you see the street lights with a particular dooms. So what happens is that particular light is only towards down, and if a bird sees also, if they want to try to land also, that can happily land because the ground is clearly visible, and the most like floodlights and security lights that is not going up, and that can save the bird from landings. Use low intensity lights as far as possible. use reflective dark colored surfaces. So these whatever artificial light comes to your building, it gets absorbed because the dark color absorbs the more light than the lighter colors. Always try to use some LED lighting which can take out this blue light. So what happens is this light, okay, that will not be a issue for them as they can't see this particular light. But this blue light, definitely they can see. And thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. If there are any questions, we can take some.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for most relevant information and enlightening us on light pollution and how it affects on birds. So now we'll be moving on into questions asked by the participants from our live. So the first question is for Rajabandi, sir. During migration of flightless birds, how do birds follow the established migratory routes? This is for Rajabandi, sir.
Yeah. Divya, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, sure. So during the
Yeah, I got it. I got the question. So,
yes,
as I said earlier, when it comes to the case of penguins, it is not migration as of in migration. So they just stick to the ice edge. So during especially winters, like the penguins, like there will be a new ice formation across the Antarctic. So the penguins always stay close to the ice edge. So wherever the ice formation takes place, mostly the penguins will stay or start moving around very close to the ice, so that whenever they need a break or whenever they want to take a rest, they can just come out and rest on the ice. And whenever they got chased by predator like seals or sharks or something else, they can actually escape and come out. So most probably in case of penguins, they just follow the ice edge. So they just keep the ice as a reference and they just swim very close to the ice and the edge. So it's I'm not aware about any kind of directional sense used by penguins, but it's more of a navigation with the help of ice around them.
okay, sir. So another question is like during the navigation of these flightless birds, so how do they get the feed, sir?
How do they get the feed?
Yes, sir.
So penguins, when they're in water, so they hunt and they just feed on fish and whatever feed is available or whatever resources are available. So it's very easy for them. And I just going back to the birds that can fly. There is one point I missed. Like I said that birds fatten up before migration, right? But not all birds does that, because if they are too fat, they can't fly fast and they might be hunted by predators. So birds like swallows and swifts, which are aerial hunters, it means they just keep on hunting, flying in the air. So they don't put up much of fat like the other birds, because they can pick up insects in flight during the migration. So
Yes.
that is one aspect which I want to cover. But penguins and all, flightless birds normally when they swim in the sea, like penguins swim in the sea, they pick up the food resources from the sea. They don't have to stop for it.
Yeah, thank you. So moving on to the second question. How important are migratory bird in an history of climatic change?
Oh, that is a very good question. It is a very broader question, and a lot of study need to be done, because one hand, I think we don't have much of historical bird migratory data, because the bird migratory data is only starting since 1950s, like late 1950s or 60s, where I think one of the shear waters that was that was actually tagged by Chris Mead in 1957 was actually captured in 2004. So that bird is the oldest tagged bird which we know. It's about like 63 years old. So the migratory studies are happening since the last 60 years, and we don't have much of the data, and the moving patterns and all available only in the last 20 to 30 years. But we have climatic data. I think going forward, if we can create more citizen science data like about the bird migration, and if we can compare it or align it with the climatic condition data, it will give us a bigger picture. there's a research. I mean, there's a lot of research happening on this front in terms of forest birds. But for the seabirds and all, I think it takes a bit of longer time to do these kind of studies.
Okay, sir.
I mean, I just want to take this opportunity that we are planning to set up a long-term ecological monitoring center in Tirupati along with IIT Tirupati to monitor the climate change and correlate it with the birds in the Andhra Pradesh landscape, which is actually the similar line of study and research.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering so patiently. So now moving on to Janardhan, sir. So the first question is, does the lights out at home make a difference for birds?
Well, see, light at the home, right?
Yes, sir.
These birds, as I told you, they prefer lighting at housing is the tall skyscrapers. I mean, not the small villages or small house lights and all. When light gets emitted from the tall skyscrapers, which houses not only residential areas but also these companies and all the software companies, etc., which work 24/7. It's like an
Yes.
illuminating light that so that these birds they may consider this as some sort of a thing that they get attracted towards it. So they get attracted and they hit the windows of it and they die there. That is how
So,
it is affecting.
yes, sir. So the second question is, do light pollution causes birds to nest earlier, sir?
Pardon?
Do light pollution causes birds to nest earlier, sir?
Nest near?
Nest, sir. So how do the light
Yeah.
pollution?
If the lights are there, see, everybody prefers privacy. So these birds, when they want to build a nest, they see to that their young they are protected in such a way that they go inside the bushes, they go inside to such an extent that these young ones, when they are as soon as they're small, they should not get exposed to the light and the predators. So when there is a lighting onto the bushes and all, then artificially these whatever birds which are nesting and all, they shift their places. They have to go elsewhere. They
Yes, sir.
cannot put up their nest there. As light falls on them, they're easily seen by the predators, preys, everybody. So that becomes an easy prey to all the other predators. So that nesting sites, all those roosting sites and nesting sites will be going away from the light. That is how this artificial light affects them.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering the question so patiently. So now moving on to, this is the end of the session now. So vote of thanks. I would like to express my gratitude to all the esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and sharing and giving us so many details and giving us a new perspective of bird migration and how we as humans are impacting their life. And I also like the participants who participated from all the ages for their active participation. We specially thank a curator, Dr. Nandini Shaleria, IFS, curator of Indira Gandhi Zoological Park, to conduct the webinar successfully and for the continuous support and encouragement. Once again, I thank each and everyone for attending the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Divya, and thank you everyone for this nice webinar. Thank you.
Thank you one and all again.
Thank you very much, sir.